Honorable Vice Chairman, sir, I conclude. Thank you.
Thank you, Mohammed Abdullah ji. Now I request Dr. Amar Patnaik.
Thank you, sir. Sir, I would like to begin by quoting Joseph Stiglitz, the Nobel Prize winning economist, who said that the world is facing three existential crises. One, inequality. Second, climate change. And third, democracy, crisis of confidence in our political and economic institutions. He goes on to say that what we measure affects what we do. And if we measure the wrong thing, we will do the wrong thing. If we focus only on material well-being, on say whether the production of goods rather than on health, education and the environment, we become distorted in the same way that these measures are distorted. We become more materialistic. So even though the GDP is not designed to measure the well-being of people, it is basically designed to find out the producing economic growth, the pattern of spending on goods and services. And therefore, if we want to put people as the first, we have to move beyond GDP, what Stiglitz is saying, what Amartya Sen has said, and many other economists are saying. Sir, I would like to use this framework in analyzing the budget. So first I will start with climate change. So on energy transition and climate action, this budget devotes about 8 paragraphs. I must compliment the Honorable Finance Minister for bringing the focus on climate action and climate change, which was one of the existential crises pointed out and flagged by Joseph Stiglitz. The budget talks about co-firing 5 to 7% biomass, swapping of batteries, green bonds for generating resources for funding this climate change. It talks about a low carbon strategy in the longer run for the economy. It talks about green energy and clean mobility systems as sunrise opportunities. It also talks about circular economy. So there are 3 things important when we talk about climate change, climate action. One is the mitigation measures, the second is the adaptation measures, and third, very important, is measurement, performance, accounting for it. Sir, in the budget, while speaking about all these things, giving a clear direction for the country, as far as climate change is concerned, which is really commendable, unfortunately, only rupees 3,030 crore has been earmarked for Ministry of Environment, which is 20% higher than the last year's allotment, but only 0.012% of India's total GDP. The commitment also has to come by matching allotments in the relevant heads of account. The biodiversity has been flagged as an enabling asset. I do agree, all the House would agree. However, the amount is only rupees 8.5 crore, less by 3.5 crore. As per the Economic Survey 2020-21, India's climate action funding has so far been met domestically. But for meeting the COP26 commitments, we need $1 trillion of money, $1 trillion US dollars of money. Therefore, my suggestion to the Honorable Finance Minister is that we need to incentivize private investment in the clean energy trajectory by having a national adaptation investment fund, and which is very transparently set up. Currently it is there, but the private sector's investment is not there so far. We need to encourage private sector to invest in adaptation finance, adaptation projects, and most importantly, India as a whole has to spend money on climate resilient development pathways, which Honorable Chief Minister of Orissa has been saying that we need to have a long-term strategy for disaster management in the eastern coast of India, which is generally ravaged by cyclones at regular intervals, and a huge amount of money goes. Sir, I would like to say why it is important. Sir, it is important because the FAO's report says that during the 2003 to 13 period, the climate-related economic loss to humanity was of the order of US dollar 1.5 trillion. And all of us know that it is the poor who are disproportionately affected by any kind of climate change, and therefore by giving emphasis on climate, the budget has done the right thing. However, as I said, it is very important to bring it into our budget, into our mainstreaming, into our figures. Orissa is the first state in the country under the able leadership of Honorable Chief Minister. We prepared the first climate budget and probably the only state which has done so far in last year in 2020-21. Similar thing needs to be done at the Government of India level. Sir, what is good for the goose is not good for the gander. The word capital is not good for Marxian political scientists, but capital is good for public financial specialists and economists. Similarly, what is good for top 1% of the population may not be good for the bottom 50% of the population. What we see in the 2022-23 budget is an overabundance of capital expenditure, technology, and I spoke about climate action, ease of doing business, which will all have positive impact on the economy. However, there is an undernourishment of health, education, rural economy, farmers' welfare, women and child, and of the states themselves. Sir, the budget has betted heavily on capital expenditure last year, last to last year, and even the current year. It is a supply-side solution. But I would like to state and make a case whether it has worked, whether it has worked so far. In India, the multiplier effect by the central government of capital expenditure is 2.45. For the states, it is 2.0. This is assessed by RBI as well as by the National Institute of Public Finance and Policy. They have mentioned it in 2014 report, RBI Bulletin 2020 report. So a rupees 1 crore investment is supposed to generate much more than 1 crore increase in GDP. However, this multiplier effect, has it worked? Now it should convert itself in terms of generating fixed capital investment. So what we see, the gross fixed capital formation has decreased from 34.3% in 2011-12 to 26.6% in 2021. It has decreased from 34.3% to 26.6% as per the first revised estimates. So the one-dimensional track of completely putting all the eggs in the basket of capital expenditure may not work. I'll give you another figure. The private final consumption, which accounts for 55 to 56% of the GDP, is growing only at 5%. The manufacturing sector contributing 17% to the GDP, the employment in that sector has reduced by half during 2016-17 to 2021. It is the SEDA CMI bulletin. So there are two concerns about capital expenditure, two primary concerns. One is what is called as the hurdle rate, the cost of finance. Unless the internal rate of return is more than the cost of finance, nobody would come to invest. And that is what has happened. The IRR on a global range is between 8 to 12%. In India, it is only 6 to 8%. Therefore, PPP mode projects will have problems unless the cost of borrowing goes down. Something has to be done about cost of capital in this country. Not now, it has not happened before. I think a signal has to come from government at some time. So now I want to talk about the time lag, the time delays. So according to the Ministry of Surface Transport, MOSPI, it is in their database. December 2021, as of December 2021, Out of 1,673 total projects, 25%, approximately 445, have incurred a cost overrun. 557, that is 30%, are delayed with an average time run of 45.69 months. So where does the multiplier effect come in? The multiplier effect gets delayed. The trickle down gets delayed. The wage creation at the bottom of the pyramid gets delayed. And that is what has happened in the private, that is what has happened so far for not being able to generate the gross fixed capital formation. And this has resulted in what we have discussed so far. Many members have discussed, and therefore I am not going to discuss about unemployment. What about the social sector? I said it is undernourished. Out of 21 primary sectors, I do not take the total allocation as a percentage of the total budgeted BE this year, but I'm taking it as a percentage of the GDP. Out of 21 sectors, in 8 sectors it has decreased as a percentage of GDP compared to last year. In 8 sectors there are no change. In 5 sectors it is marginal increase to the extent of 0.1%. Therefore there is nothing which has happened in the social sector. Then how do you create a level playing field? In the entire budget, one has talked about opportunities to be given, opportunities being created, and we know opportunities can be created only when we spend on such things like health and education. I will talk about these two things, health and education now. Now, as far as health is concerned, the budget started with health, and I thought that the allocations would have become astoundingly high. Currently, if we look at the allocations in health, it is 0.33% of the GDP, which is less than the last year and less than or even almost equal to the last year before last. We currently have 1 bed per 1,000 people against global average of 2.9. We are lower than even the BRIC countries. We have 1 doctor per 1,500 when the requirement is per 1,000. We have 1 nurse for 670 when the requirement is 1 nurse per 300 as per the 15th Finance Commission report. So the investment in health is definitely required. I look forward to it, and I think there is still some way in which we have to get investment into the health sector in this country, particularly the primary healthcare sector. The Standing Committee had also suggested investment in primary healthcare to be requiring a push, a definitive push. Now I talk about agriculture. Now if I talk about agriculture, I would like to say that unless the Swaminathan Committee report is implemented as has been demanded by Honorable Chief Minister of Orissa several times, the farmers' income probably cannot get doubled. In fact, the budget doesn't talk about doubling of farmers' income as of 2022 at all. The procurement has decreased from 126 to 120.8 metric ton. Number of farmers who have been benefited has decreased from 19.7 million to 16.3 million. The reduction in the price support schemes, which does the procurement, is to the extent of about 62%. At a time when we are talking about empowering the farmers, increasing their income, the procurement allocation has come down, and it is a matter of concern. What is also a matter of concern is the fact that agricultural investment fund, in which 1 lakh crore was supposed to be spent in 6 years, after 2 years, the spending is 6,627 crore only, that is approved. Spending is a mere 2.6%, 2,654 crore. So at the rural economy level, at the agriculture level, there is tremendous amount of distress.
Please
so
conclude, Dr. Ji.
Finally, I will end by talking about...
Your last minute.
1 minute, yeah. Finally, I'll talk about federal equity. Now, if we talk about federal equity, the amount of resource allocation to the states, as Honorable Prime Minister said yesterday, it is in the states' development that the development of the country can take place. But what has happened that the percentage of devolution to the state as a percentage of total gross tax revenue has declined from 30.02% to 29.61%. And the quantum of cess, however, which is completely appropriated by the center, has increased from 3.7 lakh crores to 4.45 lakh crores. I can tell you, since I do not have the time, that if you do a calculation of the cess and surcharge which was levied on education and health, one in 2004-05, the other in 2018, and take that allocation out of the current allocation, then you find an abysmal figure as the percentage of investment on education and health, which is a matter of worry.
Please conclude, sir.
My point of saying all this is that, Madam Finance Minister, that definitely there is growth in the economy, definitely there is a direction on climate change, there is a definite direction on using technology for giving benefits, which is very positive. But the problem is, all is still not well. It is not business as usual. The rural economy may not be under distress, but it is under stress. And therefore, the emphasis on rural economy in terms of NREGS, in terms of investment in agricultural investment fund, in terms of providing housing, has to continue. As far as housing is concerned, I must bring to the notice of this House that the Prime Minister, Honorable Prime Minister, said housing for all by 2022. Then why not to 8.5 lakh Udiyas? Let them be Lakhpatis. Let them be Lakhpatis. The figure, the prayer of the government of Orissa is pending for so long. So I would end once again by thanking the Prime Minister for the budget proposals, for giving a direction, and would request her to consider the suggestions given by me. Thank you so much.
The next speaker, Shri K.R. Suresh Reddy.